it's incredibly important to sort of be a bit human about this kind of thing, because we get a bit lost in the abstract philosophy or in the ideology and the debate. But this is really just about, as ethics always has been historically, it's about sort of how human beings can live the best kind of life. I just like to remind people that if you're committed to a vague notion of minimizing suffering, then the position boils down to something like, whenever you have the opportunity to, let's say, prevent or not inflict suffering to animals, take it. That's it. I mean, if you don't have that opportunity, if that opportunity isn't available to you, then fine. But as long as it is, I'm just recommending that that's the course of action that people should take. And people are already on board with this in principle. But in practice, like, you walk into a shop, and if you don't have serious allergies, and I recognize that your audience is going to be disproportionately different in this respect, but there'll be some people listening who have no serious allergies, who have pretty good access to all kinds of foods in the supermarket, and live in a city where it's actually, not going to be more or less expensive. You walk into that shop, and you go into Starbucks and you order a latte, and what are you paying for? Well, you're paying for a cow to be forcibly impregnated, separated from the calf. That calf might be bolt gunned in the head, turned into veal, or raised to go through a similar cycle of exploitation. The dairy cow will, go through this cycle before being sold to a slaughterhouse to be killed, because the dairy and the meat industry are pretty tied up in this way, where, if it's an Islamic slaughterhouse, the last thing it will hear is Bismillah, Allahu Akbar, and the sound of its own blood gushing to the floor. Okay, walk into the same Starbucks and add one word. I'll have an oat latte. I'll have an almond latte. I'll have a soy latte. I'll have a hazelnut latte, one of the myriad options now available to us. And none of this happens on your dime. You're not paying for this anymore. And a lot of people say, like, what we're weighing up is like the life of a cow and its suffering. And, I don't like to anthropomorphize when I talk about calves being separated from their mothers. I'm not trying to be cutesy. Like, the maternal bond that animals have is something very much pre-human and certainly sort of pre-rational. You can watch these sadistic videos. It's almost comic. There are these technologies invented, like a truck or a quad bike with a cage and an open door on the side of it, and they drive around and they sort of scoop up the calf and drive her away. And you can watch these mother cows like chasing after their children in confusion. And people say that we're like weighing this up, the suffering of the animal versus like the taste of milk or something, or the convenience of milk. And it's not even that. It's not. Because what it really is like the life of an animal on one side of the scale, and then you have the taste, pleasure, and the convenience, whatever, minus what you can get from a vegan alternative. And it's the leftover slither that we weigh up against the life of the animal. So even if, oat milk doesn't taste quite as nice as cow's milk, which I don't know if it does, it's a preferential thing. But let's say it's like 80% as nice. So you say it really isn't as nice. It's like, okay, you're not weighing up a cow's life versus the taste of milk. You're weighing up a cow's life versus like 20% of the taste pleasure that you get from milk, because the other 80% could have been gotten from oat milk, if you see what I'm saying. So it's pretty, it's worse than people think, in other words.
Well, that I like get where you're coming from there, but if my theory is correct and that people can't be healthy without animal products, and I'm actually putting dairy in a different category because I can't tolerate dairy without getting really bad arthritis and like a multitude of issues. So I don't eat dairy or eggs. They both caused issues. But if you do weigh, let's say the taste of milk, that's what you have on one side, and then the difference between like oat milk and normal milk to the suffering of a cow. Those are on your two sides. What if the problem with reducing your animal intake is actually chronic health problems, and then what you have on one side is an increase in chronic health problems, and then that's suffering compared to the life of an animal? And chronic health problems, like that's a different story, right? But I mean, it's not yes, that useful at the moment to have a conversation about that, because we need more data. I think part of the reason I've been fighting back against kind of what I've called the vegan ideology is because my concern is we have these people who are implementing agendas in major cities, so doing like Meatless Monday and things without the proper scientific background. So we don't have proper studies on these things. Now we have studies like, oh, an increase in meat increases your risk of, I don't know, everything, right? Like there's any study out there that you can say it increases your risk of heart disease or et cetera. Most of those studies aren't done isolating meat. They're done combining everything else you eat with meat. So the bun, the pop, like everything. And it would make me feel a lot better if people who are implementing veganism in major cities and saying you have to reduce the amount of meat you eat, even what's been happening in the Netherlands recently with taking away kind of farmers' land, saying you need to produce less nitrogen. And that means you can't farm cows anymore. It would make me feel a lot better if I didn't feel like there weren't studies being done as well. It's like this issue with chronic disease in North America, it's like killing people and reducing the life expectancy of people. And if that has to do with diet and that has to do with animal products, and we're pushing a vegan agenda to minimize animal suffering and to minimize climate change without looking at that part, we are in for a world of pain in like 10 years.
Yes, I mean, potentially. I imagine you probably receive similar concerns about the carnivore diet, about its potential health implications, and that there are sort of maybe like there's sort of a bit of data on this sort of being healthy, but it's
100%.
But it's potentially sort of disastrous in the. I mean, I don't know actually about the sort of long term. Has there been much research into the long term effect of?
There hasn't been any, which is the issue. Like the carnivore diet is ridiculously new, and the anecdotal reports are insane. Like you have people who lost a bunch of weight, are off all of their medications, and have a disease that was incurable in remission, which doesn't happen, right? You can't do that. There are some people, you hear anecdotes with people who go on the vegan diet too, and they're suddenly in remission. And
yes,
I know, and I think that there's a reason for that. I think that if you reduce the amount of dairy you're eating or eliminate dairy and eliminate eggs, I think that those can cause a lot of health issues for people. And if you eliminate processed foods, that can make you a lot healthier right off the bat. And that can all happen with a vegan diet, right? And that's something everybody should be doing regardless of what diet they're on.